Welcome back, everyone, to the Haps with Steve and Monty. Our guest has arrived, Mr. Jon Thorup, currently a representative in the Iowa State House for District 28 and seeking the new Senate district for the state Senate. I don't remember that number, John. What's the number?
Senate District 19.
Okay.
That's a brand new seat, isn't it?
Yeah, there are very few districts that are, well, I'd say really similar to where they were, in the last 10 years. But yeah, so I mention that because in a sense they're all new across the whole state. They're all new.
So why did you want to run for state Senate, given that you already hold an office, one that, as a Republican, you seem likely to reclaim?
Is it the pay raise?
Oh yeah, there's no pay raise whatsoever. In fact, there's a kind of a downside. I'll lose a pretty good parking place, and I'll lose the office I have. But no, the pay's the same, which kind of surprised me years ago when I found that out. But anyway, I'd say that probably the biggest reason is when the redistricting occurred, reapportionment. This district is the one that probably had the most, I would say, both in terms of land mass and probably in population, as my current district does. So I guess everybody makes decisions when redistricting occurs, and it wasn't any policy position change or anything like that. It was really just geographic and population.
Have you enjoyed serving thus far in the State House? What makes you want more of it? Well,
I like solving problems, or at least trying to solve problems, or just even having a bit of influence on some of the solutions that other people are coming up with. I say this a lot. I hope I don't say this too much, but it really is a team up there. The team, some people have asked me, well, what are the teams? They just assume it's a Democrat and Republican. But really it's not. There are 150 different teams. But there's beyond that. There's the governor's office. There are other state agencies that are, if you will, part of their own separate team. And a lot of these teams get together and try to fix a problem. Sometimes they can't get together and can't fix a problem, but essentially it's the problem solving, it's the policy, and I'll tell you that the other thing I really, really like about it, and this sounds like pandering, but this is absolutely the truth. I don't get any more joy from anything up there other than when it's it's just an individual constituent gives me a call and says, I'm having a problem with the DHS, or I can't get such and such done. Nobody's listening to me on this. I need some help. When I can facilitate fixing a problem for them, or at least getting them put in the right direction, that just feels great.
The state's charging me too much taxes. Can you help me with that?
I think we may just have. We passed the tax bill yesterday. We had passed it earlier in the House anyway. We'd passed it, and it went over to the Senate. They made some adjustments, and it came back to us last night, and it was fairly well the same, pretty close to what we had originally started with, and I think it should help you.
It's moving towards a flat tax, correct?
Yeah.
Right, and there are a few things that make it, I guess I would say, not exactly a flat tax, but more or less it's for all practical purposes, yes, it is. And when I say there are some things that make it not a flat tax, I just mean there are still some credits and deductions and that type of thing. But in general, yes, this is a move towards, to a flat tax.
So the Democrats will say that this is helping the wealthy pay less taxes.
They've already said that. I don't know if you've heard.
Yeah. That's what they
did.
do. They do say.
Yeah.
So what's your response to that?
Well, numbers can be used to back up any position. I'm sure you're both familiar with that. Statistics can be molded to whatever position you have. I'm sure there will be a few people, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be the lowest income people. I'm sure there are going to be some people who wind up paying a little bit more tax. But I don't think there's going to be very many, and I really don't think it's going to be the lower income. I tell you what, one thing that I was a little disappointed in is I had pushed to maintain some of the research and development issues, or benefits, I guess I would say, for companies that avail themselves of a lot of expenditure in the area of research and development. Vermeer is a great example of that. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to keep that in there because I think innovation is important. I think we have to keep doing it. And the more encouragement we can offer to any company, not just Vermeer, but any company, the more encouragement we can offer, the better. And anyway, that was not included in the end product. So I'll probably be filing something next year, hopefully getting some traction for that.
What do you think about companies like Tesla being not allowed to come into the state of Iowa and sell cars directly?
That came up, honestly, about 2 years ago, and it was kind of a flash in the pan because when COVID hit, everything changed, not only in the world, but just like that, everything changed at the legislature. It was almost, I've called it kind of a COVID reset, because we started looking at some other issues, larger issues, and I'm not saying that's not a large issue, but something such as tax policy, a shift of this magnitude in tax policy is one of those big issues. The ethanol incentives for requirement for selling ethanol. I don't know what that noise was.
That was my phone. People
Okay.
bugging me.
Okay.
That's normal.
No problem. Essentially, there was a reset, and there were a lot of issues like the one you're talking about, which we haven't exactly gotten around to some of those issues again, because we had to reset everything almost, and we had to deal with all of the funding coming in from the federal government. That presented its own problems also. The governor's office handled most of those, but we had some some concerns and influence in that, and so anyway, I guess I can just tell you that it was starting to be looked at, and maybe there were some legislators that continued looking at it, but that did not come through any of the committees that I serve on.
I'm a techie, so I have to ask questions like that.
I understand.
I'd love to buy a Tesla, test drive one. I just can't find a place to do that here.
No, it's okay. I'm a techie too. I'm very impressed with all this stuff here.
Thank you.
And in fact, I know this isn't the first podcast I've been mentioned in, but I think this may be my first official podcasting experience. So,
Oh, excellent.
Well, that makes us feel good,
Yeah.
John.
yeah.
And thanks for
You
being
guys
here.
chose
Yeah.
us. You chose us.
But
man.
you could say that.
Monty said that he doesn't really know you well. I've known you for a few years now. Full disclosure, I've known you quite a while, even before you were famous as a state representative. So, why don't you just tell Monty about yourself? What's your favorite pizza? Things like that.
That was my question.
I know. I stole
I'm a
that
pizza
question
guy,
from
so
him.
I-
Yeah.
Right.
to know
It's
what
a fair
toppings.
question, and I hope it's not too controversial. My pizza choice. I prefer.
Pineapple?
Well, no, I'm going to have to let you down here. Pineapple is okay, but usually on a Hawaiian pizza, I pick off the pineapple.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm more of a deep dish and fan, and then anything that's on that is probably okay, other than say anchovies and pineapple.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps the voters, but
So Chicago deep dish?
That's
do you
good
like
stuff.
it where the sauce is on top of the cheese? And
I'm more an under the cheese kind of guy, and I like extra sauce, but I don't like extra cheese.
okay.
Look, that's where I stand.
Interesting.
Well,
You
I
probably
asked-
just lost some voters there, John.
There's a big pineapple lobby.
It's huge.
Not in Iowa.
I don't know if you're a Barstool Sports fan, but the one bite pizza challenge. The president of the company goes around and takes bites of pizza. And
I need to.
I'm a huge fan of that.
I'm unaware of this contest.
Yes. Yep. It's very interesting. Barstool Sports.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look this up tonight.
On the level of importance, I know that'll be right at the top. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get to that right away. So you wanted more information?
I wanted more information.
I won't go through
about
more-
you.
So we know you were a state trooper.
I still am, actually.
Still am a state trooper.
Still am. Essentially, the state, and I'm not sure the first legislator who actually did this, but if there's a public employee, and that would include, school districts, it would include, I guess, county employees, city employees, and state employees. If you run and win an election, they have to give you a leave of absence, essentially. So during the 110 days in the first year of a session and the 100 days after, in the second session of a general assembly, I'm off the road. I'm just on leave of absence, and really it's not a huge problem for the state because I just switch from one payroll, the executive branch to the legislative branch. But no, I've been a trooper for a long time. I've been I actually started as a reserve deputy, I think when I was either 18 or 19.
Wow. Okay.
And then when I was 20, I was hired by the state, and I've been with them ever since.
So you're kind of like the Biden of state government. No, just kidding.
I was gonna say that was a little low.
Yeah, I don't see a connection there, but
Injecting some humor is all.
I can use that. I can always use that.
So you're off duty today. You won't give me a ticket for my window tint. Is that correct?
I will not.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
I definitely won't.
But as far as like being off the road, do you miss the road when you're in the middle of the legislative session?
I do. There are things that I don't miss. I suppose it's like anything. There are some things that I don't miss, which, fortunately, it's worked out great for me that the founders of, well, I guess the framers of the Iowa Constitution decided to have their session right in the middle of winter, which makes it a little better. I don't have to, be out there working as much, and the other guys cover for me. They do a great job. But yeah, there are definitely things I miss. The day in, day out, being around everybody. I mean, it's a job where you're actually around people all the time. At least that's the way I do it.
Is that a positive thing?
For me, it is.
Okay.
I suppose there are some people who might be more introverted and they don't want to be around a bunch of people. I suppose it's, I have a friend who, he's now a retired doctor and hates being around people. And it just kind of astounds me, like, why did you pick that job? And he was very good at it. And that, I mean, it still worked out. He's retired now anyway. But my point is, I think it probably just depends on the person versus the job. But, no, I like being around people. I do.
Even around politicians.
Yeah, that's a thing. Believe it or not, most of the people, at least in the state capitol, most of the people up there are pretty pleasant to be around. Even the lobbyists, who a lot of people think lobbyists are this evil force, this third chamber, if you will. That's not been my experience. Once in a while, yeah, I mean, it's like any large group of people. You're going to have a couple who are, kind of hard to get along with and whatnot. But in general, most of the people up there are pretty happy to help each other with most issues. And the other thing that I really like is most legislators and most lobbyists, you're going to disagree on a topic here and there. So you might disagree on topic A, but once that issue is done, that it wasn't personal, let's move on to the next thing, and I might be with them on the next thing. I guess again it kind of depends on a lot of things, but even I hate to admit it, even other politicians, I prefer public servant, by the way. That sounds better.
Public servant, yeah. No, you as a trooper I consider that as public service. Politician,
maybe not.
I not well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the bad ones that get the most attention. That might be.
I think if you're a short-term public servant, you're maybe not a politician. So I think that there's a certain number of years that if you serve, you're a politician. If it's over that amount of years,
that's definitely conceivable. And and honestly, there's some folks up there that I guess I would say right out of the chute are more of a politician. But then there are some that have been Brent Segrist. I share both I and Brent Segrist are assistant majority leaders, and we share an office. He's in his he's just in his second term now this go round, but he spent around 20 years in the legislature before. Then he retired. Then he had another career. Then he retired again, and now he's back. But now there's a guy who has nearly 25 years experience as, quote, a politician, but you'd never know it. He's very easy to talk to. I don't ever see him smile just because the camera's around. I mean,
I was waiting for a pause. I don't ever see him smile. Then it's the camera's there.
No. You do have some people. You run across some people that they act completely different when the camera's on, or if they're around somebody they haven't met, or if they're around somebody that's I don't know, has a lot of authority, power, money. And again, that's probably just general human nature. You're going to have certain people that are that way. But somebody like Brent Segrist, I really look up to him.
Did you have?
Yeah, where is he from? And tell us a little bit about Brent.
Sure. He was originally a social studies teacher in I believe I don't know if he actually taught in Council Bluffs or not, but in 1984, he ran for the legislature for their House seat. And he was elected, and he was there for not quite 20 years, I think. But his last several years were as the Speaker. He became the Majority Leader and then became the Speaker of the House, and I think he was pretty well universally respected. It was a little bit different time then, I think, as far as collegiality. But anyway, he wound up retiring from that. He actually ran for Congress, and in the primary, Steve King overtook him. But anyway, at some point after he was done working for the AEA as a lobbyist and kind of a consultant, eventually, I think when he retired from that, he maybe was a little bit bored. And there were several of us that knew him from the lobby and said, you could contribute quite a bit. So anyway, so that's Brent in a nutshell.
Excellent.
So you're in your fourth term, right?
Fourth year.
Fourth year, yeah, that's right. So what would you say has been your biggest accomplishment so far as legislation passed or difference made, and why should the folks in the new Senate District 19 choose you?
Well, as far as biggest accomplishment, it kind of depends. I guess it depends on the day. A couple of years ago, we worked on some legislation to give health insurance for if a first responder, and I think at the original language, I believe we had correctional officers. If one of them is killed in the line of duty, their family would be able to continue with the health insurance that they had, which to me is just commonsensical. At some point, some of the other employee categories were removed from that bill, and it passed. Great bill, but at the time I thought, well, it's too bad we can't get some more of these, more of these classifications in here. Then all of a sudden last year happens where we had a double homicide in the Anamosa prison. And fortunately then we've been able to, and we did a little bit of this last year, we're trying to do a little bit more this year, to include correctional officers in some of those benefits, some of those survivor benefits. They have the health insurance now. We did that last year. I'm very proud of that, but I guess the reason I'm mentioning it is sometimes something doesn't seem as good when we are passing it, but just a year or two goes by and you look back and you say, I am really glad we did that. That was a great thing. So I don't know. As of right now, I'd have to say that's probably one of my biggest accomplishments. And another one is in the school system. And Senator Sinclair and I, she is the chair of the Senate Education Committee, we worked on some legislation that wound up passing, which would you've both heard of the term room clear,
Yes.
in a school. We just felt that if you have a child that's being extremely disruptive, we wanted to give the school districts, the teachers mainly, some kind of protection if they decided in their judgment, you know what I need to do? I need to get, I've got 20 kids in here. Nobody's misbehaving. They're all sitting there stunned because this one kid is freaking out and flailing and whatnot. We wanted to let that teacher, if that teacher felt the need to take that student somewhere else instead of taking, instead of trying to take everybody else out of the classroom. We just thought it's a good idea to give them some protection so they feel like they can take care of the deal as it's happening.
Well, that seems like common sense because as a child I misbehaved a lot. Imagine that.
Well, me too.
No.
But the first thing they would do, I went to Sully Christian School. The first thing they would do is pull you out of the classroom and bring you to the principal.
Sure.
And then he would beat you with the stick or something like that
Right.
at that point, which I totally deserved. But how is this different from that, really?
Oh, I don't think it is, but I think that kind of illustrates how when all three of us were in school, we weren't together. I want to make that clear to the audience. That, we probably wouldn't be sitting here right now if we had. I don't even know what that means, but I'm guessing we wouldn't have. But you're right. It makes perfect sense from a normal standpoint that a teacher ought to be able to handle a situation like that. Unfortunately, and this is another issue I have some concern with, is there's so much regulation now on public schools. There's so much regulation in terms of administrative work. The teachers have, instead of being able to focus sometimes on teaching, they have reports they have to fill out. And I know some of that is necessary, but all of that didn't build that big mountain of administrative requirements. That didn't happen overnight. And every time, and I see this in my, my regular job, it's always just a little incremental addition. We're going to need them to fill this out. It's only like 3 or 4 lines, But you keep doing that, and eventually you have this, this huge mountain of regulation. It just seems to me that's something we can try to trim that back.
As a school bus driver, we're seeing that as far as requirements go on school bus drivers. It's harder and harder to get the license. It's harder to get the endorsements. It's harder to get the job, and because of that, we're having a hard time finding drivers.
Right,
it's really difficult.
Right. No, absolutely. And one of the things, the cameras in school rooms. I want to let school districts handle that. That bill died. I want school districts to be able to handle that. Same thing on buses. But I would say I think having any cameras on buses really, I don't know if you've ever had any.
We use it on a daily basis almost. I think of it as my digital lawyer.
Yeah, you're right.
It backs me up every time I have to make a decision.
Right.
Every person that accuses me of cutting corners too short and almost hitting them and stuff like that, I simply say, call the transportation director and they'll look at the video.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, I say this from the law enforcement perspective, when cameras were first getting put in squad cars when I was hired. Most cars didn't have them, and I remember at the time most of us were leery. It's like, I don't want to be recorded all the time. Yep. But it has been like you say, it's been a great friend really at the end of the day. So I don't know if you have the same experience, but many times when we have a complaint filed against us, the question will come up to the complainant, what's the video going to show us? And they will just be stunned, and they'll say, "There was a video of it." But I'm curious if that's. Have you?
It's the same thing. Although the kids all know that they're on video whenever the bus is going, whenever it's running, and we know that as well. So it's just it makes me feel safer.
Yeah, absolutely.
That way, I'm not accused of something I didn't do and stuff like that.
Right,
so,
right. No.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I think it's a positive thing.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's probably a good thing. Anyway, I was explaining that the any kind of a violent activity, if a teacher needs to deal with that, we were able to come up with a fix for it. It's not the perfect fix, but that's another thing I'm pretty proud of.
Well, I don't really know if it's possible to solve all problem children. I don't know how to fix that. Not that there are problem children out there. It's just
there's lots of problem children out there.
My experience in the classroom was pretty limited as a substitute teacher. I'm not in there. I'm not driving a bus every day and all that.
You should ride along with me sometime, Steve.
I think I will. I'll talk with. Yeah, let's do that. So
we could arrange that. Make it a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I like this idea. But you're thinking. You're thinking,
and you can come in full trooper uniform and see if that makes any difference.
I don't know.
You can play Wheels on the Bus as the intro.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm thinking let's kind of table that business plan.
Probably safe.
Let's think about it for a while first. Yeah, exactly.
So you never really answered. Why should people pick you? Because we know that you got into this race first. Because you assumed that Ken Rosenboom was planning to retire.
Right.
And he changed his mind, and now you've got the primary challenge of a sitting state senator.
Sure.
Why should the Republicans choose you? And in the fall, why should everybody choose you?
Well, not everybody's going to choose me, I'm sure of that. But, and honestly, I respect my opponent a great deal.
What did you do to Ken to make him change his mind?
Well, I'm hoping it wasn't me, but no. And in fact, interestingly enough, just about a week before, I would think it was around a week. I'm not sure the chronology, but I put a post on Facebook, a picture of he and I together, and there's a bill that he filed a few years ago, and I'm trying to work on it now. And anyway, in this post, I wrote. This isn't verbatim, but I said how much I respect him and whatnot, and really like the guy, and I'm going to miss the guy. And of course, I've had a few people from my campaign say, "You've got to get that off of there." And you know what? I'm not going to. I felt that then. I still like the guy. So anyway, to answer your question as far as, and I'm not saying this is a contrast, but I think I have a reputation in the Capitol for collegiality. When I mentioned Brent Segrist's earlier terms, things were just more friendly, I think. You didn't have social media where, Republicans might say, oh, all the Democrats are this. And the opposite is true with, looking at the parties the opposite angle. We have that all the time now. And that's something that I would like to think you would never see from me on social media. I definitely don't practice it at the Capitol. And I think I'm effective up there just because it's strange, but it's simple. That I can't remember the name of that book. I learned everything I need to learn from kindergarten. And it was something of that sort. And anyway, I think I'm effective up there. I know that I'm very dedicated to that job. There are many days I'm one of the probably 10 people there first thing in the morning, and a lot of nights like last night, I think there were a few staff members still there, but when I walked out, that parking lot was just empty.
I saw the picture that you posted.
Yeah.
It was empty parking lot with snow. And
It just looked pretty. It looked pretty, and I thought, I'm going to take a picture of that. But I just think that I try to not be partisan, to come up with an actual solution for problems, and something that I almost always do on anything that's controversial is I ask a lot of people what they think. I ask a lot of people. I'll hear a lot of things from constituents anyway, and all of those are many times very valuable. But over the course of the last 3 years, I've developed, I guess, I don't want to say a kitchen cabinet, but I almost have an advisory panel now, and I'm very, very fortunate that I can reach out to those people and say, look, I already know what I think about this. Give me the opposite side. So I guess that would be probably my number one answer of why I would like people to vote for me.
And to the people of Pella, you being from Knoxville, and
Sure.
you realize that we have cannons facing each other at the courthouses.
I think one's a howitzer, technically.
Is it?
I think. No, I don't know what I'm talking about, but that might be true.
How do you plan to represent Pella in this area? Because this is a Pella-focused podcast.
Sure.
How do you plan to advocate for Pella?
Well, a couple of things. When redistricting happened, we have this new district. Marion County is chopped up pretty good anyway, just in two different chunks, basically. But I don't necessarily see any reason that I'm going to be dealing with things any differently than I was before. Like, just for example, I've dealt with... Oh, my apologies. Sorry.
Right.
We should have that removed.
The desk didn't fall down.
Yeah.
All right, then we're fine. Maybe this is part of my other job, too, as a trooper. I work over here all the time. I have a lot of friends over here. I definitely have colleagues on the, not just in the police department, but, fire volunteers of the fire department, that kind of thing. And just a lot of friends, as I said. And because I've been a representative in Marion County, we tend to work a lot with each other anyway. So I've come over here way before I even knew what redistricting was. I've been over here for forums. I've been over here for, just like business meetings about what business wants to do, that kind of thing. So really, I don't see a huge difference.
Have you been to Tulip Time?
Yes, I certainly have.
And what's your favorite food at Tulip Time?
Boy, I'd probably have to say anything with bologna that's cooked. I love that stuff.
You should have said corn dog, but that's okay.
No, you can get a corn dog. You can get a corn dog anywhere. Like Poffertjes, I like those.
Yeah.
Now I always like Dutch letters and what were the banket. I hear different different pronunciations. Some people
I've
call
never
it
heard of that one.
a banket. Well, it's like a Dutch letter, but it's kind of fatter, and it's just like a stick.
Sounds good. We'll have to try that.
Yeah.
We need to try those.
Yeah.
Well, the ingredients are the same. I mean, you can eat I don't know. It seems like a more efficient way to eat a Dutch letter. And have you noticed they're always S's?
They are always S's.
Yeah, they are always S's.
I've never had like a Dutch W or
See,
something.
that's a topic for another podcast. Why are they always S's?
They're always S's. Yeah. Well, I do know that, say, like on Wheel of Fortune, vowels cost $500 or something.
And
So,
to Dutch people, that's huge.
well,
yeah.
good point. So so maybe it always has to be consonants.
Yep, absolutely.
But if it is, then why are there never any C's? A C would not be that much more difficult to make than an S.
No, you wouldn't think so.
Maybe that's the Haps special, is that we make our own
Yeah,
Dutch letters and make C's.
I think we need to try that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we definitely need some kind of legislation on it.
Yeah, definitely.
More laws.
Exactly.
You already have to. In fact, on our last podcast, the barbecue truck that they're planning on moving in here, you have to have a certain look on the front of this barbecue trailer.
Oh, I bet,
because it has to fit in the Pella. And,
Sure.
And so, yeah, I think we've probably got enough regulations.
Yeah, probably. So. And I mean, and I'm not trying to play off of that, but yeah, as far as regulations go, I just, and again, it's probably from my background as having been and continuing to be a state employee. There are so many internal regulations. There are, the people look at the Iowa Code, and it's pretty thick. Last year we had to do our caucusing because of COVID. We had to do it in the state law library, and you can see all of the old versions of the Iowa Code. And it is amazing, since I think maybe 1970 something was probably the last time that there were 1 or 2 volumes. And since then, it's just, you can just see the progression, literally see how many more volumes are put. It's accelerating, is what I'm saying. But even the Iowa Code doesn't, it's not nearly as, I was going to say impressive, but I mean unimpressive, is referring to administrative code. There is so much of that. There's a huge load of administrative code, much thicker, I would say, if you set them all down together.
You see, that's another topic altogether, is administrative code and the rules and stuff. I thought our Constitution was supposed to be, we elected you to write the laws, and why not write them simply so that we don't need all these rules and the administrative code and whatnot? Because I'm not a big fan of the administrative code. I'm not gonna lie or hide about that.
The argument is, the opposition will say, your opposition will say that things are getting more complicated. Everything from technology to society is getting more complicated. So that's the result, is more administrative code, more laws, and more regulations.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And I think we probably, just because we've evolved this way to a certain extent, the bureaucracy always thinks, without even thinking it through, I think the bureaucracy generally thinks, well, we're going to have rules for that. Mm-hmm. And
so there is a deep state in the state of Iowa.
Well, it's probably not, I'm sure it's not just Iowa, but I think I get your point, though. But I think as all of these regulations come along, I think it's almost a snowball effect. Hey, we're going to need rules on that. And within the state government, there are so many times that I might ask an administrator from whatever department, doesn't matter which one, any of them, why do we do this? And invariably, the answer will be, well, we've always done it that way, or, we have to do it that way because of a federal regulation. I remember I heard a story from John Landon, who unfortunately we just lost him to cancer, but he was a representative, and he was also very big on cutting red tape. And he, at some point, went over, I think, to the Department of Revenue, if I remember correctly, and he walked in and kind of did a surprise, I shouldn't say inspection, maybe a surprise tour of the place, and he came across a couple of people that were working, and he was asking people, what do you do? What's your main job? And he came across this is sad, it's funny but sad. He came across one person, a young lady, and he said, what's your job? And you remember the phrase TPS reports from
Office Space?
It was something like that. She said, well, I have to fill out the federal TPS reports. I have to collect this data. And John said, okay, well, what's that for? And she explained what that's for. He went and checked with the federal government, the portion of the federal government that would would review that data, and they said, yeah, Iowa keeps sending it to us, but we haven't mandated it for 6 years. And the point being that the bureaucracy was just so used to filling out this data and providing it. Nobody ever asked, do we still have to keep sending it? And so we had at least one employee that's all their benefits, all their salary,
job security.
It is job security. And if I remember correctly, I think the young lady did know that it wasn't supposed to be, or that it wasn't mandated, but she had apparently told her boss at some point, would you rather I work on something else? And apparently that option, or that suggestion was, I don't want to say ignored, but it didn't prevail. And so anyway, she just, okay, well, if that's what they want, I'll keep doing it. So
government isn't so different than big companies. I used to work for Wells Fargo as a project manager, and part of the infrastructure there was the management was in such a way where the more people that report to you, the higher up the chain you go. And so a lot of the people as a contractor would hire other contractors that really didn't have specific jobs to do, but they needed people to report to them so that they could move up the chain. So we literally at points in time sat there and just surfed the web all day long, just because they had to have somebody to report to them.
Right.
And that was my job at Wells Fargo.
Well, that sounds like a good job, but
it wasn't too bad.
But and that's, that illustrates a point. But I feel like government is much worse at that. I think larger companies have a certain amount of that as a scourge on their their bottom line. But the trouble with government is, I'll give you an example. The people that handle the budget, the legislature, we're only physically there for 100 or 110 days, depending on what year it is. The department heads, the executive branch, they're there all year. So there will be times where we will ask some questions during session. Do you need this particular amount of funding for X, for whatever X is? There are some administrators, probably most of them know this, but once in a while you'll have an administrator or a bureau chief or whatever that will say, you know what, let me get back to you. And they know that if they just wait until we adjourn, that issue isn't going to be a problem for them for the next year. Some of us try to stay pretty active during the interim period of time too, and continue to send emails saying, hey, I'm still waiting on this information. But my point is that you have to have people up there that are willing to do a lot of work during the interim period of time, but also just to be interested in topics. And I'm just speaking in general. I guess most people wouldn't run for the legislature unless they were interested in specific topics.
Sure.
I suppose, but anyway, just a lot of government waste is my point.
It was just announced that Iowa was going to get $174 million to fight the opioid crisis. As a trooper, as a House rep, I guess I don't know how huge this opioid crisis is, but maybe you can enlighten us.
Well, it depends on what perspective you're looking at. I guess everything is that way, but the opioid crisis it affects. It affects a lot of different groups. It will affect, and I'm referring in this case to also medication. Actually. Oh wow!
Sorry.
Did I just win like $50 or something?
I think it was up to 100.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. But obviously most of that is going to be focused on injected opiates, that type of thing, fentanyl. Sometimes that's smoked also, or just ingested. Doesn't matter the delivery method, but there's a lot of it out there. Iowa, we have a huge amount of narcotics and narcotics money going through our interstate system. And if you think about it, I-80 just cuts east and west, more or less, through the country, and I-35 north and south. It's a hub of activity. We have some, say, state troopers, but also deputies and some city folks that are really good at interdicting some of that stuff. I don't think any of that funding is going to go to that. I'm just giving you that as an aside. But I run into a lot of it at work. One of the things that some of that funding is going to go to is I'm probably not supposed to use a brand name, but there's a medication that is given to most law enforcement officers, or at least this is the goal, to get it to all of us. And if we get dispatched to a house or an apartment or a business, and if we think somebody is, we can see they're non-responsive, and if somebody says, hey, he's been on fentanyl, I know he took fentanyl or whatever, this stuff, it's amazing.
Narcan.
That would be a brand name.
Yeah. I watch Live PD a lot, so.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about then. But that stuff is just astounding to me, because I've given CPR to several people through the years, and it's not often. I don't know what the rate is, what the success rate is, but it's not like in the movies. It's pretty rare that somebody, depending on the time that you get to somebody, but. So I'm kind of used to, most of the time, if somebody's in that type of a situation, if they're that far gone, usually, wow, this is not going to turn out well. But this Narcan stuff is just, honestly, I'm not astounded very often anymore, but that stuff works. It's amazing.
So we're to the point where that's in every patrol car, it's in every ambulance, it's available pretty much everywhere, isn't it?
I'm sure almost every ambulance has it. There's a lot of law enforcement that still doesn't, and that's part of the reason.
Really?
That's part of the reason that this fund is being put there now. And I have to be specific. I'm not sure if the 175 million that you're talking about. I'm guessing that's going to get divvied up into several different funds, but at least I guess, if you want to call it the Narcan fund, that's going to be, I'm sure there'll be volunteer firefighters that they're going to try to get it to, but a lot of law enforcement. So.
Is it expensive stuff?
I've never had to buy it. I don't know.
I wonder.
And I'm not sure that, I'm guessing you couldn't actually buy it without a prescription or something, so I don't know. I really don't. I've never run across anybody who has it privately.
I guess if you did, you'd have to question why.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you would. I guess on the other hand, I suppose if I was if I was a brother, let's say, of somebody who I know has
That's true.
He's overdosed 3 times in the last 10 years. It's like, maybe I should get some of that, because that's about the only situation I can think where somebody just protecting a loved one, I guess.
Or if you're a big fan of Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
Yeah, but wasn't that epinephrine?
That was epinephrine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't stab it twice.
That's a scene. That's a scene. You'll never forget. Right in the chest.
That was good stuff. Yeah.
Well, can government solve the opioid problem? Because they've been working on that a long time. They've been working on the immigration issue a long time. How can you measure progress? When you're up there at the State House, how do you guys measure progress on some of these things that you say you're going to try to fix?
Right. There's a phrase used up there. I mean, obviously we didn't come up with this phrase, but there's a phrase used a lot on many different issues, and that issue, or that phrase is moving the needle.
Yeah.
The goal a lot of times is we want to get to a certain finish line, so to speak. We want to solve a problem completely. Now, realistically speaking, there are very few issues that we are ever going to be able to completely stop.
I realize that, but at least make some progress.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, as an example, abortion. I have some friends who are pro-choice, but and I don't think they're horrible people. I think they're very. I think they're misdirected maybe, but my point is that I'm very, very pro-life, hugely pro-life. That's nothing that we're ever going to completely stop. We are getting closer to stopping any legal abortions. We're getting close to that, depending on what the Supreme Court decides. But we don't have a problem getting to that level. But the truth is, there will still be a few people who try to abort, I would say, at that stage of time illegally. But even though every problem is like that, there's always going to be some residual cases of something that is bad. The point is to make as few of them as possible. And I'm not just talking about abortion, but anything, overdoses of fentanyl. And I guess that's probably a good example. I should have just used that one, but we're never going to stop fentanyl from being, from proliferating. But the point is, can we make it better? Can we keep more of it out of the hands of youth? So I'm not trying to give you a depressing answer, but I guess I'm enough of a realist to know that we're always going to have problems. That's that's why we still have a legislature. That's why we still have the Congress. Even though a lot of problems you would think would have been solved a long time ago, they change, they shift. Now, slavery in Iowa, obviously that was eliminated as a legal thing. However, we still have human trafficking. Yes. So a person could say there's still slavery in Iowa.
Is that a problem here in Pella?
You don't know what you don't know. And many times those cases, you don't find out about them until they're all done. So if somebody's been, I don't think probably in Pella or even Newton, there are a ton of abductions, but a lot of times they don't occur as an abduction. A lot of times they occur over a long grooming process. So sometimes somebody who's being, quote, trafficked, they still go home every day. Or they tell their family, you know what, I've been accepted for a new job in Chicago. Because you wouldn't think they would say those things, but after a long grooming process, kind of a brainwashing process, and I'm just speaking in generalities, there are many kinds of human trafficking, but that's, you don't, my point is you don't know, how many people left Pella, Newton, Knoxville, wherever, for some other faraway land or just another state or a bigger city, and nobody really knows the real reason they went is because they were pressured, brainwashed, and sent there. So I can't say that problem is absolutely everywhere, but it would not surprise me one bit if some of that is going on here.
What are things we should watch out for?
This is something that mainly would be a law enforcement thing. Because when we catch something of that nature, it's because everybody's nervous at this. Let's say there's just a traffic stop, and let's say there's a guy and a young lady, and the young lady, you can just tell that young lady is nervous, doesn't make eye contact with me. And this is obviously not just me, but if you're the officer, doesn't make eye contact with you, doesn't want to answer any questions. And I'm not talking about difficult questions. I'm just saying, like, as you're standing there, talking or waiting for them to get the registration out, maybe you say, well, hey, what are you guys doing tonight? While you're waiting, you're not interrogating them, but you can just generally tell a sense. If there's a normal family group, everyone just kind of, the kids will always be fascinated by the uniform and stuff. Mm-hmm. Usually everybody will be pretty relaxed. So there are those little cues like that. Now, not being in law enforcement, you might just notice, honestly, some of it's just a kind of a gut instinct. You may just think, something's weird over there, between, let's say there's three people and, I'm trying to think of the right body language to explain, but in fact, if I come back, I'll have a list of some of these things.
Okay.
But I wasn't prepared for that question. Right. But a lot of times it's like a general nervousness. Now I would say families, if a family starts seeing some weird behavior out of one of their children or sister or brother or whatever, families will notice that stuff way before, say, a person on the street would. So, is this person all of a sudden, and I'm no psychiatrist or psychologist, but, if a person if a child of yours or, like I say, a brother, sister, or even probably a parent, if any of those loved ones are starting to, they're receiving weird emails or they're
Snapchats.
Anything on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
That's how most of those situations are caught. Either through law enforcement, traffic stops or investigations, or somebody from the family just figures out there is something really wrong here. I can't put my finger on it. And nobody wants to think that one of their relatives is being groomed for human trafficking and they're missing it. They're just not noticing it. So sometimes it takes a long time for someone to maybe admit to themselves that, what, I need to do something about this. This is way worse than I thought it was. I thought such and such just had a new boyfriend, but no, I can see now this is a big deal. So I feel like I'm all over the map on this answer, but
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I recently ran a story about that in the Express about human trafficking
Yeah.
and signs for it. Yeah, it's a messed up thing, and certainly we just want to keep our eyes out for it. And, how can the legislature, help? Like, I know there's a Freedom House, I believe is what it's called here in Pella, that supports young ladies trying to recover from that.
Right.
And there are a few others. I know there's another one in Des Moines. How can the legislature help nonprofits like that might be faith-based, helping people recover from something like that?
Right. This is one of the frustrating things about the legislature, and it's nothing new. I think it's always been this way. I mean, I'm kind of amateur student of history, and the Congress, for example, has been this way forever. We tend to think of, oh my gosh, everything is so slow today, and I'm not saying it's not, but I think things have always been pretty slow within the legislature, and I guess that's kind of the point. Part of it is let's not rush anything through. My point in making that point, the legislature, we've done several things before I even got there. We've done a few different things, and I'm sad to say some of it's just been nibbling on the edges, just in the margins. I'll give you an example. I think it was last year we had a bill, we passed it, that would require hotels, not all hotels, but any hotels that ever have state employees stay there. It's kind of a reverse way of looking at it, I guess, but it's an incentive to have different state government employees when they're on travel status to stay at your hotel. So if you want to stay eligible for that type of thing, you have to put your employees through training on what to look for. Mm-hmm. So we really don't know how much that's going to stop. We may find out in a couple of years that hasn't stopped anything. If that's the case, let's try another play. We'll try something else. But a lot of times it's little things like that. Sometimes you have to experiment. Sometimes we'll find out another state has some kind of a great program. But I think the training piece is huge, both for law enforcement and for hotels. And so I guess what I'm saying is we've done some, we're still trying to do some, and we'll continue to do some. It's really a matter of finding something workable, or many workable things. I never know who to look at here.
You never know. It's a mixed bag, and you never know when we're going to switch back to more fun stuff. So.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, I'm on my toes here. It's a dynamic and fluid environment in this room.
It is.
So you're going to Peachtree Brewing tonight.
That is the rumor.
Do you like a lighter beer or a darker beer?
Honestly, I've never been a huge beer drinker, but when I met Blonde Fatale, which is one of their, one of their
good beer.
Yeah, that it's not as amazing as Narcan, but it's
I've never drank Narcan. So I don't know.
but it's pretty amazing stuff. So I'd have to say something like that. Other than that, maybe once in a while I'll have something like a Guinness, but it's not a common.
Yeah, Guinness is my drink. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
It's just not a common thing for me because it's kind of the consistency of motor oil.
It's a meal in a glass. Really,
it is a meal in a glass.
It is.
Yeah, that's a.
But what's the thing inside the Guinness can? I used to drink Guinness
carbon
in college.
dioxide. Yeah, it just releases carbon dioxide when you open the can, so that
it comes out of solution. I think it's out of the emulsification.
Something like that.
Oh, wow, big word for you, John.
Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but I'm hoping that one or two people watching this podcast
they'll buy it.
Yeah, just one or two is all I ask.
So other than enjoying a Blonde Fatale, what are you doing over there at Peachtree tonight?
Well, we're starting out with. Actually, I'm not sure if we're allowed to have a Blonde Fatale or not. I'll buy it if it's available. I guess they'll probably let us. Why would you stand in the way of a sale? I guess. But in any event, we are starting with a tour just to look at the facility. I've never been in the back before.
It's pretty neat, man. I've been in there.
You've been there. Mm-hmm. Well, see that you're more famous. You're more famous than I am.
Yeah.
But today's a big day for me because I get to join. You probably won't be there, but I get to join. Okay, I get to join the list of people that have gone and seen that, which includes Steve Woodhouse. Anyhow, we're going to have a little tour. I think they're expecting maybe that to last an hour, and then we're going to have a forum for, I believe, another hour after that. So sometimes I like those. A lot of times at forums, people show up who are upset with something we did, which is honestly, I mean, I'm not even joking about that. That's a good thing. You know, we need to hear those things.
At least they're passionate enough to show up.
Right. And again, I like to hear other sides of issues. You know, I may feel like I know right where I am on whatever the issue is, but I like hearing the alternative viewpoints. But a lot of times I think, you know, they'll tell me about something that's like, wow, I have never thought of that, you know. Anyway, point is, we'll be having this forum. Some people who will be upset with stuff will show up. It seems to me people who are really happy with everything, they don't really have a reason necessarily, not as strong a reason to get up and go and listen to a forum. So,
well, mixing politics with beer, that can't be a bad thing.
I wouldn't think so. You know, I've always wondered if, you know, they say politics and religion. Don't ever talk about those. However, I've never experimented with this, but what if you talk about the religion of politics or the politics of religion? Do they cancel out? Or are
No.
I was guessing not. But,
it's like dynamite. When you mix dynamite with nitroglycerin, then yeah.
Yeah, it's not like they both put each other. Yeah, you're right.
It's bad.
Well, anyway, I wasn't going to be the one to try this, you know, to test this. But anyway, just something I was wondering about. I have a lot of time.
Welcome to my Thanksgiving table with my in-laws.
Is that what?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It sounds great.
Oh, it's a blast.
So can anybody attend this forum, or will it be? Well, we probably won't have this up till after it's over. But so, like, is there like going to be a link of the recording, or how can people follow up on that?
And honestly, I was sent an invitation and I accepted, and I'm not right on it. I don't have a lot of that information. I would assume it's a public forum. I don't know if the tour is, but you know, a lot of and that's how it works. A lot of times I'll just receive an invitation. I mean, here, for example, you know, I was invited to come on this podcast. I didn't know if there were going to be big TV screens blaring loud noises while we were doing this. You know, I just didn't know.
Just hammering and
I was going to say
like that in the
that.
background.
That's
The studio here is a work in progress. So.
Oh. Well, it's no, I'm enjoying it. Don't misunderstand me. All I'm saying is I didn't know what to expect, and I also don't know what to expect over there today.
Well, you know, we weren't going to come at you, you know, like wearing masks or something like that. Or,
Right.
Well, we thought about that.
We thought about it.
Decided
but
not to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah, you got to turn that up.
What am I turning up?
Or whatever, I don't know. The oscillating fibrillator control there,
Yes. That's exactly what it is.
I thought, well, I know my way around a studio.
You didn't get the memo about what the doohickeys do. So.
No,
Okay.
I didn't. I'm sorry.
Well, that's what it's called. It's a doohickey.
I can get you a memo on that. Did you get the memo on the TPS reports?
You didn't get the memo? Yeah.
I'll get you another copy.
My stapler.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
my stapler.
Milton. His name was Milton, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Great character.
Yes. Great
Burned
thing.
the place down.
Yeah, that part. He went a little farther, I think, but
It's arguable.
fair enough. Fair enough. What else can I? What other answers can I give you?
Okay, so tell us. You have to tell us one thing that nobody in Pella knows about you.
Well, boy, that's hard to come up with, because what if everybody in Pella knows just like one little detail about me? Then maybe they know all. You know. Boy, can you give me what are the other? Give me an example. Give me.
Other than like law enforcement, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do in your free time? And watching Office Space, what else do you like to do in your free time?
Yeah, I haven't watched that in a long time, so that's not a common thing. You know, I read a lot. I spend a lot of time, maybe not a lot of time, but I spend time in my garage sometimes. This will sound really weird, but not the garage part yet.
We hit it. We hit the jackpot.
Yeah. No, you're going to be very disappointed when I explain it. But, you know, once in a while, obviously, being a trooper can be stressful. Being a legislator is amazingly, hugely highly stressful at times. Sometimes it's. I mean, it's always fun. It's always something I want to be doing, but it can be pretty stressful at times. So sometimes I'll be in my garage. I'll go to my garage, and I may have I have a huge collection. maybe. I have buckets and buckets of fasteners that I have collected through the years. Screws, bolts, nuts, washers. And there is nothing more relaxing for me than taking a small amount of those, putting them on my workbench, and separating them. Because then at some point, if I'm doing anything around the house or working on any kind of a project, I want to go somewhere and, I need a lock washer for that. So instead of just digging through these buckets, I'm kind of on a long-term project to get all of these sorted. And I don't think anybody in Pella knows that that's the level of nerd that I am. But,
well, they do now.
They do now.
Yeah.
But
So that's interesting. Okay.
God, I don't think so.
Really? Well, it's accomplishing something. I mean,
that's true.
It's yeah.
Really, and this is no joke though. Most of my free time is focused on the legislature. There are you are never caught up. If you're a legislator that wants to do stuff, and most are, I suppose there are a few that are just there because somebody talked them into running, and they think it's neat to have senator or representative in front of their name, I guess. But by and large, most people want to be there and want to work hard. Anyway, my point being that I'll spend time reading bills. I read every bill that's filed in the Iowa House of Representatives. Most people, I don't know what the percentage is, but most people just read them online. I want to have a copy every morning on my desk. It's sitting on my desk, whatever the packet was from the night before. I look through those bills, and there's.
So the environmentalists hate you probably because you cut down a lot of trees.
You would think that. You would think that, but actually, I will use a lot of that paperwork, the stuff that is that doesn't have anything on the other side. Mm-hmm. I'll flip those over and use those as printer paper later. So so that works out.
Good.
Yeah, but it takes a huge amount of time to read through those things, and then sometimes there will be maybe a bill that, well, oftentimes, in fact, there will be a bill that I have no idea what they're getting at. What is this about? This doesn't make sense. And I'll take a couple of bills, maybe 4 or 5. I'll go up to the floor. I'll try to find the representatives that filed those, and I'll go over and say, what is this? This, are you serious? Does this can't mean this, can it? And then sometimes they'll give me a really good explanation. Sometimes they'll say, well, I didn't write it very well, and I see where you're coming from, and I'm trying to fix it. But anyway, my point there is that it takes up a lot of my time reading through bills, dealing with constituents, that kind of thing. But again, like I said, I kind of love doing that. So, yeah, I don't want to call it a hobby. You asked about hobbies, and
yeah. I just had one more quick question.
Yes, sir.
Why do you guys have drafters? Why don't you guys write your own bills? We send you up there to write the legislation. Why do you turn that over to LSA?
Well, you don't really have a choice. All legislation has to run through LSA. Now, LSA is barred from having any political position, or it doesn't matter if they agree or disagree. They have to take whatever you have and work it into the legalese that is required for Iowa code. It's really not a bad thing. I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying. From the outside looking in, it sounds bad, but they do what we ask them to do. It just has to be put into that specific parlance. There are many times, in fact, I think it's pretty rare that I've ever had a bill on the first version that they did it exactly the way I wanted it to, or wanted it to be. Most often, I mean, I can't think of an example where it's not true, but usually what happens is I'll say, here, I want a bill that does A, B, C, and D. They'll send it to me, and it'll A, B, and D are perfect, but C, the way they wrote it does the exact opposite of what I wanted it to do. So I mean, there's a lot of review and changes and that type of thing. That's why amendments are such a big deal in the legislature, because even when a bill comes out, people will say, that would be a lot better if we did that.
Is that an Iowa thing, or is that in other states as well?
I think even the Congress is that way. I think
Oh, really?
I would assume every other state in the union does I think most of us all have similar procedures, but I've never served in any other
So
legislature.
if I wanted to infiltrate the government, that would be the way to do it.
That would be, yeah.
Yeah.
So Monty Godike.
Conspiracy theory there. Sorry.
Monty Godike, LSA. Coming soon to ABC.
And honestly, the people that work for the LSA, I've been hugely impressed with. Some of them have a great institutional knowledge. There's one guy there. His name is Ed Cook, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say the name, but Ed has been there for I think 34 years, something of that sort. And his institutional knowledge is just astounding. He has a memory that is amazing. And so I've gone to him and I've said, here, I want to do a bill that does this. And he'll say, well, back in 92, such and such was filed, and we had a problem with a federal statute that blocked that legislation. Maybe you ought to go this angle. And it's some angle I never would have heard of or thought of. But I mean, we have people up there like that who, whether they agree personally with your policy position or not, they'll try to help you get it somewhere.
Interesting.
Is
First
it?
I've ever heard of
Is
that.
it interesting?
Yeah,
Okay.
that is. I didn't know that. You taught me something today.
I will be happy to come back for like an inside baseball episode where I tell you all of these little arcane details that nobody knows about, or probably most people don't care about.
I was going to say we'd get about a half a listener on all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. You want listeners,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
maybe we should skip that. Maybe somebody in the garage.
The advertisers tend to want listeners. I don't know why.
Well, I don't know your business. I'm not going to tell you how to run it. But you're probably going to get half a listener, which to me means somebody sitting in their garage sorting nuts and bolts, halfway listening to the podcast.
We're just friends to that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just personal friends.
Just friends.
Yeah.
It's good to have friends.
It is, and well, I think we've kept you long enough. You're a busy man because we're still in the heart of the session. So
He's got beer to drink tonight.
he's got beer to drink tonight.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't think it's a great idea if I'm going to be answering questions to have any beer
but
beforehand.
that just might make the forum more interesting. Or let Senator Sinclair. If she drinks the beer first, then it's probably okay for you.
Don't drink and drive. We all know that one, but
Yes.
I'm going to say don't drink and politic.
Yeah, there you go.
Only horrible things can happen.
Just ask Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I don't know.
Just rumors.
Yeah. That's how rumors get started.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap up the show today. Thanks for coming by today, John. We'll probably follow up with you again before the primary. The primary's coming right up. But for the Haps,
June 7th, yeah.
Yep, June 7th. You're a Republican. You're still going to be a Republican. So,
Yep.
Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks, John. Thanks, Monty. And for Monty and Steve, this is Steve signing off for the Haps. Have a great day.